Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Sabb Experience podcast with me, your host, Charlene Sabb. Welcome one, welcome all. Come in, come in, come in and enter the chat. I'm so happy to be here. This is like a dream come true, and I'm glad that you all could have been anywhere you wanted to be, but you chose to be here with me. Well, a little bit about myself. I'm a native from Brooklyn, New York, and I currently reside in Raleigh, North Carolina. Been living in Raleigh for the past 26 years. I am the proud mother to a handsome, tall, beautiful son by the name of Michael, who's 32 years old, and he has blessed me with a beautiful granddaughter by the name of China, who's 8 years old. She's pretty, beautiful, and very precocious. I am a language arts teacher. I teach language arts for eighth graders, and I've been teaching for approximately 17 years. I'm a published writer. I published my first book titled If He Doesn't Come a Calling, Practical Tips for Dating. And that book was self-published approximately 13 years ago. It is a dating self-help book for women, even though a lot of men have purchased the book and gifted it to their significant others or women in their lives. It gives great advice for the ladies of what we do that sometimes turn off men and get us out of the dating race and things that we could avoid that really came from my own experience and experiences of observing others, family members, and female friends as well. Go get your copy of my first book, If He Doesn't Come a Calling, Practical Tips for Dating. It's available on various platforms, Amazon, Books A Million, Indie Books, as well as Barnes and Noble. So get yourself a copy. Help us out. I'm also working on two more books. One is an adult contemporary fictional book by the name of Brooklyn Baby. I had to represent where I'm from, Brooklyn, New York. Hey. And that book, with God's grace, I hope, keep your fingers crossed, will be published within the next year. And another book I'm working on concurrently is a book called Quotable Quotes 365. It's a book just to give people encouragement for their day-to-day. There are life lesson and or motivational quotes, or just dropping some quotes full of knowledge. And I have these types of quotes for each day of the year. Hence the title, Quotable Quotes 365. So there's a quote to get you through your day for all of the 365 days of the year. Writing's been my passion since I was a young girl. The English language has been my passion since I was a young girl. And I'm just so happy and blessed that I was able to at least have one book published. And just happy to be blessed to be working on two simultaneously as well. This podcast, how did it come about? I'm going to just be honest. I'm very verbose, and you'll see when you get to know me with the upcoming podcast. I like to talk. I come from a talking family. We would sit at the dinner table and have very tangible conversations, and we were a family in which you didn't go and take your plate and eat in another room. You didn't go eat on the couch. We all had to sit either at the dining room table or the table in our kitchen nook in our home in Brooklyn and eat as a family. After my mom cooked a really good meal, because my mother, rest her soul in heaven, she passed away earlier this year in February of 2024. She could throw down in the kitchen. She was a good old country southern girl who knew how to cook. But one of the things that she and my dad, by the grace of God, my dad is still with us. He's 86, going to be 87 in August. They always bestowed upon us the importance of sitting as a family and having dinner together as a family. So that is something that I hold near and dear in my heart. Okay. Um, so, with that being said, because talking and the love of English and being analytical and discussing feelings and how everyone's day was going and just using conversation as a form of really free therapy, if you think about it that way. I had a recent conversation with my son Michael, with whom I speak to every day. Every day. Um, he'll call me after work. He'll call me in between. He'll call me on the weekends. He's an avid gym goer, so he might call me while he's working out with his AirPods in his ear, and we just talk. We talk about our day at work. We'll talk about anything that has happened in our lives, or maybe there's a situation going on with any of our friends or family members, and we just discuss, run ideas off of each other, and use each other as a soundboard. And to be quite honest, it came about a year ago. I said, you know what, Mike, you and I could really have a vlog or some type of podcast, and we just let the idea just sit. And then we had a recent conversation a couple of weeks ago, and Michael echoed that same sentiment again. He said, you know what, Mom, you and I could really have a podcast. Uh, Michael and I, we're just thick as thieves, very close, and people be really surprised about the dynamic between our very unique mother son relationship. We're only 20 years apart. I gave birth to Michael when got pregnant at 19 when I was a student at the University of Virginia, and gave birth to Michael, who was my only offspring, by the way, when I was 20 years old. And luckily, University of Virginia has family housing, so we were able to um, continue on with my college education with my son in tow, living on family housing at the University of Virginia. So I was able to finish up, get my degree with my son by my side. And at the time, I was um with his dad. So the three of us were a little family in our nice, cozy student, or should I say, uh, family apartment, family housing apartment in the University of Virginia. So, talking, communicating. So, Michael said, you know what, Mom, we could really have a podcast. And I think, I just always wanted to have, I said, if I ever became a parent, I wanted to have very open, honest, unique conversations, no holds barred, with any child I gave birth to, because even though my parents were the greatest, and my dad's still with us, he's the greatest. My mom, when she was alive, she was the greatest. Great childhood. I wouldn't take any, it was just a blessed childhood, let me put it like that, and a blessed family to be a part of. I still couldn't have very open, honest, tangible conversations with my parents, even down to when I lost my virginity, which they didn't realize till decades later. They thought one person was my first, and they were surprised to find out somebody else was. Oh, maybe we'll get into that in the upcoming podcast. Ooh, Lord have mercy. But that is the truth. So I said, you know what? When I have a child, I'm going to have open, honest conversations with said child. And again, Michael, a couple of weeks ago, we were having a conversation. As I told you, we speak daily for at least an hour a day, usually. He said, Mom, we could really have a podcast. And I said, you know what? You're right. Because the idea of having a podcast actually entered my mind, as I mentioned earlier, about a year ago. Uh, but I kind of put it to the back burner. I was helping my dad um, take care of my mom, and also my dad needed a little help with things around my parents' home. So I pretty much abandoned a lot of things that I was doing, and pretty much abandoned my own residence just to spend time with my parents for the past 4 years. You know, so now, unfortunately, my mom has passed. But with that being said, a lot of obligations and a lot of things that were on my plate with her care and loving on her in her last years and months and days have been removed. So more time freed up for me to try to explore this thing called podcasting and other ventures as well. So I just wanted to invite you all, invite the world into what goes on in my conversations, what insight and advice, and what I have to say on certain topics. And then there are going to be some episodes in which my son is going to join in as well. And we may maybe possibly have some of his friends, male and female, chime in and give their insight as far as what their perceptions and their thoughts, their ideas are regarding certain topics. And nothing is um, off limits. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I tell people I might be 53 years old, what we call Generation X. I'm older, but I'm not dead. And that was another reason why I wanted to have my own podcast. I don't want to be held to a certain standard. I don't want to not be able to have my voice heard because often in life, even in different careers, we're silenced. We don't have a voice. Or you can't say this because you're at risk of losing your job. Or you can't do this because you don't want to rock the boat. But with this podcast, I can just let my thoughts and the thoughts of others just flow, because what you see is what you get, with or without the makeup. That's a joke, dry joke. Anyway, but yes, so we want to have truthful, honest conversations. So, like I said, Michael may chime in sometime. There may be some additions and episodes of this Sabb experience in which we call the Sabb experience Mother Son Edition. So I'm just letting you know, put your seatbelts on because we're going to go for a fantastic ride called the Sabb Experience. So I'm no expert, even with the books that I am working on and the first book that I had published. I'm just giving my insight regarding different topics, my perspective, my advice, what I think. And some of the topics we are going to explore, especially in this podcast, in the first several episodes, will be topics ranging from family, friendships, relationships, handling stress, and even sex. Yes, sex. We're going to keep it cute. We're going to keep it classy. We're going to keep it very truthful and honest as well. All right. So, as far as my podcast is concerned, you can look forward to brand new episodes being available every week, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, like clockwork. You can look forward to a brand new episode coming out weekly. Where can you find this glorious, wonderful podcast? It's going to be available on Spotify, Google, Apple, and YouTube. So that's all for now. I thank you for joining me today and to find out more insight, perspective, and information about my brand new podcast, The Sabb Experience. And remember what I said. Hey, check out my first book, If He Doesn't Come A-Calling, Practical Tips for Dating, available on Amazon, Books A Million, Indie Books, and Barnes & Nobles. Thank you so much for being here with me today, and look forward for our newest episode, which will be episode 2, in which we're going to be talking about family, the topic of family. And it'll be available on Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace, love, hair grease. Until then, be safe, be well, God bless.